Hello and greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Due to getting a copyright claim on my walkthrough video of the D&D i3 Pharaoh module, I have re-uploaded it and took out the copyright-claimed song. Hello and greetings to all you fans of RPGs and of Dungeons & Dragons. This is RPGmodsFan, and in this video, I will be reviewing and discussing the Dungeons & Dragons module I3 Pharaoh, which was written by the husband and wife team of Tracy and Laura Hickman, and published by TSR towards the end of 1982. Actually, the Pharaoh module traces its origins back to 1980, when the Hickmans first published it through their own Daystar West Media company. Their business was not successful, and eventually their adventures were sold to TSR. TSR not only bought the adventures, but also employed Tracy Hickman to write more modules as well as books. As FYI, from a secondary source, I heard that Tracy is more of a game, dungeon, and level designer. His wife Laura is the storyteller. So, she deserves a lot of praise. This module is known for its story and lore. The TSR version of Pharaoh is a bit more expanded, and it adds new wilderness adventures in the desert. This module was meant for player characters between the levels of 5 to 7, meaning it is an intermediate dungeon adventure level. This module was written for AD&D First Edition rules. The Dungeon Master will need to do some work to convert it to 5th Edition rules. Just as an idea. Maybe I should do such a video in the future. Anyway, as FYI, the I in the I series of D&D modules stands for Intermediate. To me, the best D&D module is the iconic I6 Ravenloft module. It not only has a great layout and design, but also a fantastic, or should I say gothic, story and lore. Ravenloft is also part of the I series modules. The same authors, Tracy and Laura Hickman, who wrote I3 Pharaoh, also wrote Ravenloft. The I3 Pharaoh module is the first of the Desert of Desolation Trilogy. The other subsequent modules in the trilogy are I4 Oasis of the White Palm, and concludes in I5 Lost Tomb of Martek. The I3, I4, and I5 modules were compiled together and released as the Desert of Desolation Supermodule in May of 1987 by TSR. The Supermodule tries to expand and add a few more details, NPCs, areas, and encounters to the trilogy. In my opinion, I prefer the original modules. The original modules did not state specifically which campaign world the trilogy takes place in. However, the Desert of Desolation compilation places the adventures in the campaign world of Pharaoh, also known as the Forgotten Realms, specifically in the Desert of REUPLOAD. As trivia, when Gary Gygax was forced out by the petty and degenerate Lorraine Williams and the Bloom brothers in 1985, TSR moved away from Gary's Greyhawk setting and, by 1987, into Ed Greenwood's Forgotten Realms setting. The Desert of REUPLOAD is located in the southeast area of Pharaoh. The REUPLOAD Desert is also known as the Dust Desert, but it is more commonly known as the Desert of Desolation. Also, in the Forgotten Realms setting, the compass orientation of the Desert of Desolation has been flipped upside down. In other words, what the module labels as north is really south, and what is south is north, in Pharaoh. If you are looking for a location for the module on the Greyhawk campaign world, I would suggest the Sea of Dust. Moo! Just to be master of the obvious, the Desert of Desolation modules are based on the ancient Egyptian mythologies and civilizations of Earth. The adventure starts as follows. The player characters are foreigners in an Egypt-like land and country. They are accused of doing mischief to a wizard of the court named Wandu. Specifics of the mischief should depend on how lighthearted or dark-themed the Dungeon Master wants to make his or her campaign world to be. Perhaps one of the player characters fooled around with one of the wizard's wives, or with one of his daughters, or both. Whether true or not, soldiers of the realm arrest them and take them to the base of a range of craggy, dry mountains, which opens up into a desert. During their forced march with the soldiers, the characters will learn of a few rumors about the Desert of Desolation. The commander pulls out a long scroll and reads it to the player characters. Displayed on the screen is the beginning part of the scroll being read to the player characters, which reads like a long court order. Basically, the player characters are accused of causing mischief to the wizard Wandu and were found guilty. The mischief is a bit silly. The party is accused of short-sheeting the wizard's bed and inviting two women to the wizard's home, whereupon the women start a catfight. As a DM, I would change this to more suit the theme of your campaign world. Their sentence is to head into the Desert of Desolation, find a raider's base of operations, and eradicate the raiders and their base. Hence, for the ruler of this realm, the player characters are expendable and are being used to show the ruler's barons that he is doing something about the raiders that are troubling their lands. The soldiers return the player characters' gear and give them pack animals and enough water to last 7 days, which can be stretched further if they are careful, such as rationing the water and traveling at night. The soldiers also provide the characters with tents, firewood, food, and rations. The desert and barren wastes before the player characters is foreboding and horrible. It stretches out to as far as the eye can see. All the typical tropes of an arid desert is here. A sea of sand, lifeless dunes, scorching sun, etc. Minor spoiler warning. Due to the front cover art and the text written on the back cover, it is obvious that when the player characters get near a giant pyramid in the distance, they will see the ghost of Pharaoh Amun-re, who points towards his pyramid and begs the party to plunder it. And now for the major spoilers. I will now be discussing the module itself, and this video will contain spoilers. Unless you are a Dungeon Master who will be running this module for their players, or are a player who already played through this module and are watching this video for nostalgia purposes, I would suggest not to watch the rest of this video. Oftentimes, in many fantasy worlds, there is a language that everyone understands and speaks, aka the common tongue. Many areas throughout the I3 module, as well as in the next 2 modules of the series, will have ancient hieroglyphic writings on the walls, in scrolls, and in tomes. These writings will allow the player characters to learn more about the history of the land and the pyramid. assuming they have a means of deciphering them. To me, it does not make sense that the player characters will even have a chance at understanding these writings, not even on a roll of a natural 20. As a reminder, the player characters are supposed to be foreigners in a strange land. At the beginning of the adventure, I would have a guide or two who understands ancient hieroglyphic writings accompanying the party. When the player characters are arrested, the guide is arrested as well. Or, as an alternative, the player characters can encounter a couple of archaeologists by one of the ruins. If asked why the archaeologists are alone in a hostile desert, the archaeologists can state that their team was recently wiped out by an unusually fierce sandstorm, and that they are the only survivors. If the player characters intend to explore the ruins, the archaeologists will be eager to join the party and provide translation services despite their recent sandstorm tragedy. Tragedy! Love that Bee Gees song. Anyway, moving on. Nowhere in the Desert of Desolation can the raiders or their base be found. Not in this module, nor in the next two modules of this trilogy. The Desert Raiders are MacGuffins. They serve only as a reason for the player characters to be wandering around in the Desert of Desolation, which is infuriating to me, given how long the beginning exposition is. So, I should name the Raiders as the MacGuffin Raiders. However, I do not like this MacGuffin, and want the Raiders to be a legitimate plot point in the Desert of Desolation trilogy. In the I4 Oasis of the White Palm module, there are 2 to 3 non-player characters that I found suitable to be the Raiders' leader. I will discuss them when I review the I4 module in a future video. Right now, the wizard Wandu only serves a minuscule role and as an expositional background for the module. Yet, his accusations, whether true or not, is the reason for the party to be banished to the Desert of Desolation in the first place. If the Dungeon Master likes plot twists, then make Wizard Wandu as the leader of the Raiders. However, this suggested plot element will require the DM to do quite a bit of prep work to incorporate him into the trilogy. So, a lazy Dungeon Master, like myself, may prefer to use one of the NPCs in the I4 module to use as the Raiders' leader instead. The module's true objective is for the player characters to find and obtain the Pharaoh ruling staff and the star gem of mo-pelar from the pyramid. The star gem of mo-pelar also functions as a gem of true seeing. Other than being a potentially powerful weapon, the Pharaoh ruling staff plays no future role. Throughout the Desert of Desolation trilogy, there are a total of 3 star gems the player characters need to find and obtain. The other 2 can be found in the next module, I4 Oasis of the White Palm. These star gems will be needed to escape from the Lost Tomb of Martek in the I5 module. Displayed on the screen is the wilderness map of the module. Player characters start at the top of the map at the area marked with the letter A. For simplicity's sake, as a DM, I would say the party can move a maximum of 6 hexes per day without incurring exhaustion. If they move slower, so as to be more cautious, then I would lower their chances of getting caught in a sinkhole, as well as other potential desert hazards. The plus signs on the map are supposedly tracks of horse and human footprints left by the latest raider incursion. In other words, an obvious hint that the player characters should stick to the path marked by the tracks. The only potential problem is if the Dungeon Master rolls for a sandstorm on the random encounter table. In that case, as a DM, I would rule that the tracks have been wiped clean. There are two groups of native folk that can be encountered in the desert. One of these folk are the Thun dervishes. The Thun dervishes lead a nomadic existence and are excellent trackers. They hold the ruins in the desert as sacred and see themselves as its protectors. They hate grave and tomb robbers and consider them as infidels.
Thun. Sounds like Dune.
I wonder if the authors of this module were thinking of Frank Herbert's Dune novel and the Fremen of Arrakis when conceiving of these desert folk.
Thun. Dune. Arrakis. Desert planet.
The other group are the symbionts. They are semi-nomadic tribesmen who are mainly interested in trade. Symbionts and Thun dervishes were once one people. Then, many centuries ago, symbionts converted to what they call the true faith of Anu. Their faith calls for the destruction of all idols, which puts them at odds with the Thun dervishes, who seek to preserve the past. As a random encounter, the player characters can chance upon symbionts riding on Pegasi. Sorry, rant ahead. Given my affection for the Pegasus and the fact that I chose it as my avatar for my YouTube channel, I take it as an offense that the symbionts ride such noble creatures. Our past and history should be preserved, regardless of who our ancestors worshipped. In my D&D world, a Pegasus would never allow a statue-destroying symbiont to ride it. The only Pegasus they would be allowed to fly on is this one. Again, sorry for my rant. The destruction of Palmyra and the ancient Mesopotamian sites in Iraq just makes my blood boil. Okay, I better move on, otherwise I will start ranting again. The area marked with the letter C and the shaded adjacent areas are potential sinkholes. A rare but possible random encounter is the player character's chance upon a purple worm. For 5th through 7th level characters, this would be a tough encounter. To me, for some reason, this seems like an encounter with a sandworm from the planet Arrakis, also known as Dune. Here is my homage to Dune.
The melange from the purple worm must flow.
At the area marked with the letter G, the player characters can gain entry to the sunken city of Pazar. Their first encounter will be with 5 huge tarantulas. The module labels this rectangular room as the Room of Guardians. The doors to this room are golden, bright, and shiny, and has no handles. They can be opened by speaking a special passphrase or by a knock spell. There are 3 energy curtains, cold, lightning, and fire, that block the way to the far end of the room. Clues to open the golden doors and pass the energy curtains can be found on a scroll in the room below the Room of the Guardians. At the far end of the room, is a huge brass lamp. Rubbing the lamp, unfortunately, will not make Barbara Eden of I Dream of Jeannie to appear. Wah! Boo-hoo! However, removing the lead seal at its top and then rubbing the lamp will free the Ephoriti that has been trapped in it for over 1,000 years. The Ephoriti is eager to escape and wreak havoc to the world above, and will not fight the player characters unless attacked. After this encounter, the Ephoriti does not play any further roles in this module. However, the Ephoriti does play a major role in the next two modules. So much so that if the player characters do not free the Ephoriti during their course in this module, then the DM will have to say someone else did. As a side note, the I3, I4, and I5 modules do not give a name to the Ephoriti. In the Desert of Desolation compilation, he is given the name Calitharius. As you can tell, this module packs a lot. I have already discussed quite a lot, and now I am finally getting around to discussing the pyramid part of the module. The massive pyramid is 700 feet or 213 meters tall. For comparison purposes, the Khufu Pyramid, also known as the Great Pyramid of Giza, was 481 feet or 146.5 meters tall. Due to erosion and the removal of its capstone, its current height is 455 feet or 139 meters tall. At night, when the party is within a few hexes of the pyramid, the ghost of Pharaoh Amun-re will recite these words displayed on the screen. On YouTube, DMing Dad did an excellent job at voicing the ghost of Pharaoh Amun-re's speech. I shall now present it to you.
I am Amun-ra. In my time I was Pharaoh of this once beautiful and green land, blessed by the gods with a wondrous spring that gave life to our land and nurtured our crops. Yet robbers did raid the tombs of my forefathers and take from them tokens of their passage into the lands of the dead, thus keeping them from their reward in the afterlife. I swore at all costs that I would not fall prey to their evil deeds. So it was that I made a mighty and terrible war upon my neighbors' lands, plundering their wealth for my own. I did enter a contract with a great mage who worked a mighty wonder, and upon the sweat and blood of my people did build a thief-proof tomb. My people turned against me with bitter hatred. I not only robbed the borderlands, but I did tax and plunder my own people and take from them their wealth. They rose up in anger, demanding their gold and precious gems, their lives and freedom. But I cursed them, saying, "By the ruling staff and the star gem of mo-pelar, I curse you. Threaten not my life, or by these implements of my power and the holy name of Osiris will the stopping of my heart also stop the spring that brings life to this land. If the river stops, so shall your land wither in the wilderness. This I do swear by Osiris." From the sea of upraised hands before me rose one with a spear. The shaft sped from the darkness, and so that night the spring did stop its flow. In death my spirit gleefully approached my pyramid, but Osiris stopped me, my spirit, far from its tomb, saying,
"Your monument to life was to be the benefit you brought to the people under your stewardship, not this edifice of stone. As you look to your death and life, so you shall look only to your life and death. I am bound to fulfill your curse, for you have called it down with the power in my name, but I do curse you, Amun-Ra, that you shall not enter this tomb where are the implements of your voyage to heaven, until some mortal soul does despoil this place, taking your staff of ruling and the star gem of mo-pelar from your thief-proof tomb.
Uncounted seasons have passed, and my kingdom is not now but to be seen in the desert lands, save for my tomb which stands now as it ever was. Many have tried, I trust, and none have succeeded. My wealth is thine. If thou can undo this thing that I have done, remove both my staff of ruling and the star gem from my tomb, that you may have wealth, and release me. Follow my path to wealth or woe, to thy destiny or doom.
Basically, Amun-re built a theft-proof tomb. In order to do so, he needed a lot of money. So he waged war and plundered his neighboring countries and heavily taxed his own people. The people rose up in revolt, and Amun-re cursed them. Upon his death, his curse took effect, and his lush green, fertile land turned into the Desert of Desolation. To break the curse, he pleads with the player characters to remove his ruling staff and the star gem from his tomb within the pyramid. Lying just outside of the pyramid is a temple complex. A dervish high priest and his assistant, as well as many Thun dervishes, can be found throughout the temple complex. In the high priest's possession is the tome of Amun-re. The tome documents Amun-re's life, talks about what his lands were like, as well as their ancient Egypt-like customs. 10 days ago, the leader of the dervishes here and some of his men disappeared in the pyramid. Hence, there is potential roleplay here, if the characters choose the diplomatic route over the combative route. Due to the number of level-draining undead that can be encountered in the module as a whole, the DM should have scrolls of restoration available for purchase from the priests, as well as placing scrolls of restoration as additional treasure throughout the module. In addition, as a suggestion, the priests should have other curatives available for purchase. The pyramid has a false tomb named the Plundered Tomb. In room number L4, a number of Thun dervishes are prostrating themselves before a huge statue of Amun-re. The statue holds a large bowl of fire. The flame burns with neither smoke or heat. Anyone or thing that enters the bowl will be teleported into room number L13 within Cordan's maze. This is a one-way trip, and Cordan's maze is located inside the pyramid. Basically, it is the only way to get in the pyramid. In the center of this room is a sarcophagus. Its lid is broken, and like the rest of this area, contains nothing but dust. The plundered tomb is an area intended to fool tomb robbers into thinking that they are too late to loot the pyramid. To provide some perspective, displayed is a more isometric view of the plundered tomb's layout, along with where it is in relation to the pyramid. Once the players are in Cordan's maze, a skeleton lies in the center of the room, holding a sword that points towards the eastern exit. Most player characters will think the skeleton is pointing towards an exit to the maze. Actually, there are a few exits to the maze. The module instructs the DM to only describe directions in terms of left, right, straight ahead, or behind, but never in terms of north, south, east, or west. The most frustrating part of the maze is that most of the corridors are filled with an orange mist. This mist obscures vision. Players cannot judge distance, nor can they notice rounded corners. So, mapping is made impossible. Hence, Gust of Wind becomes an invaluable spell in this maze. Also, if the player characters are clever, they will send one person through the mist with a rope. Thus, by the rope's actions, the other players will be able to figure out if the misty corridor ahead is rounded or not. The Cordan's maze level of the pyramid is located above the plundered tomb area. The background of Cordan is not described in the module or in the Desert of Desolation compilation. Hence, I assume that Cordan was once a high-level wizard in the employ of the former Pharaoh Amun-re. There are a number of wandering monsters that can be encountered in Cordan's maze, such as minotaurs, ghouls, doppelgangers, bandits and cut-purses. Side note: as a DM, I would have the bandits and cut-purses disguised as Thun dervishes. Otherwise, it makes little sense on how they got into the maze in the first place. Thun dervishes and others can also be encountered as wandering monsters within the maze. The lost Thun dervish leader and the remainder of his men can be found in the chamber labeled L23. If rescued, he and his companions are willing to join the party. However, remember that if the player characters despoil the tomb, the dervishes will attempt to slay them. It is possible to reach the next level of the pyramid, called the Halls of the Upper Priesthood, through one of these circled chambers. Here is a side view of one of the chambers that has an exit on its ceiling from Cordan's maze. It is also a lair for 2 minotaurs. Here is a side view of another chamber that has an exit via a water well from Cordan's maze. The waters that flow through the pyramid are the waters of Anthus, which have healing properties. This chamber is the lair of an androsphinx, who will answer a question only if the player characters correctly answers one of his riddles. By the way, this androsphinx must be very lonely, since there is not a hierosphinx in any of the Desert of Desolation modules. What can I say? I'm a sucker for romance. The halls of the upper priesthood were to be the final residence of Amun-re's higher priests. These priests were to be sealed into the pyramid after bringing Amun-re to his final resting place. The priests would then live out the remainder of their lives in these halls. However, now the halls of the upper priesthood are mainly populated by the undead, such as ghouls, wights, and wraiths. During its early days, TSR was notorious for adding the token Damsel in Distress into their modules. Hey, I am not complaining. Back then, I was a randy teenage boy fapping to Playboy and Penthouse magazines. I wish TSR would have added more mature material into their modules. So, in this module, instead of getting a damsel in distress, we get a female human 6th level paladin. I wonder if that is Laura Hickman's influence. Anyway, the paladin is battling against 8 ghouls. I could fap to such a scene as well. Okay, I better move on. As with this paladin, the module does not name too many NPCs. So, let us call her Mazzy, after the halfling fighter who aspires to be a paladin from the Baldur's Gate series. After helping her defeat the ghouls, Mazzy is willing to join the player character's party. She has battled with the unkillable undead wizard Munafik, who is now at the level above. Hence, the player characters can now be forewarned about the danger they will face in the near future. Mazzy is on a quest to find a magical amulet. If the Dungeon Master wishes for Mazzy to continue her adventures with the player characters, you can make both the amulets that the Sheik and his first son wear in the I4 Oasis of the White Palm module be what she is after. Or, instead, she can be on a quest to find her lost brother Persivlas. Persivlas got lost in the lost tomb of Martek, which is the concluding module of this series. In addition, if for some reason the guides or archaeologists have perished, you can say that Mazzy can read ancient hieroglyphic writings. The only way to reach the next level up of the pyramid is through chamber numbered L33. There are 2 altars. One is on the east side of the chamber, the other is on the west side. From the altars, one can control the gravity within this chamber. The next level up of the pyramid is called the Gauntlet. Displayed is the side view and the isometric view of the pyramid's interior. Hopefully, these views give a perspective of its interior as well as the upward angle of the gauntlet level. The waters of the Aethys flow downward on both sides of this long, upward-sloping corridor. At the top of the corridor is Munafik, an undead 10th level magic user. He also has a giant pet fist beside him that acts like a 10 hit dice monster. Munafik is also responsible for turning Amun-re's former priests in the halls of the upper priesthood level into wights and wraiths. Munafik cannot be harmed by cuts, blows, or spells. However, spells that do not cause damage, such as Hold Person, will work. The only way to kill Munafik is to destroy his heart in cavern L64. The heart is sealed in a glass jar. However, there is a clay golem in the cavern guarding Munafik's heart. By the way, this theme of an unkillable monster with a separated heart will be recycled by the Hickmans in a couple of other D&D modules. When the player characters reach this landing of the gauntlet, an exact likeness of each character will appear before them and attack. However, their weapons and armor will be non-magical. At the very top of the gauntlet corridor is a 10-foot or 3 meters pillar of rushing water. Above, the tomb of Amun-re can be accessed through this pillar of flowing water. Well, we finally reached the tomb of Amun-re. Through the first set of bronze double doors is what is called the treasury of the Pharaoh's chamber. On the west side of the chamber is a reed boat. In it is 10 ornate vases containing a total of 5,000 platinum pieces. On the east wall is a large painting of the same boat sailing high above the clouds, carrying a large and beautiful gemstone in its bow. Anyone who tries to touch the painting will find his or her hand passing right into it. If a character sticks his or her head through it, he or she will find him or herself looking out over the clouds as if from a window that is 3 kilometers, or 10,000 feet, in the air. 30 feet beyond this window, an exact copy of the reed boat in the treasure room is anchored to a cloud. There is one important difference. The star gem of mo-pelar is on the bow of this boat. This gem is one of the 2 treasures the characters need to fulfill their quest. As a reminder, it is one of the 3 star gems needed to complete the Desert of Desolation Trilogy. As FYI, the window and boat are located 3 kilometers or 10,000 feet directly above the pyramid. And what ancient Egyptian-themed D&D module would be complete without the proverbial sarcophagus holding the proverbial mummy? Just as a reminder, on any hit by a mummy, the victim not only receives damage, but also must make a saving throw or be infected with a rotting disease. Until cured with a cure disease spell or greater, the victim cannot regain hit points, meaning healing potions and spells will not work. Within the sarcophagus is the Pharaoh's ruling staff, which is the other item the player characters need to fulfill the Ghost of Amun-re's quest, in order to bring the I3 D&D module to its end and conclusion. Originally, the Hickmans only wrote the dungeon portion, i.e. the pyramid portion, of this adventure for its original release. When Tracy Hickman started working for TSR, he was given a second desert-themed adventure by Philip Mayers, which would go on to be published as I4 Oasis of the White Palm. So, the decision was made at TSR to join the 2 adventures and add a third to conclude the series. Hence, the Hickmans added the Desert Wilderness portion to this adventure. The Desert Wilderness is a great addition, because it makes the module less of a railroad dungeon. There are loose story/plot threads that carry over from this module to the I4 and I5 modules. One is the player character's relations with the Fremen, cough, I mean the Thun dervishes. Even if the party was initially friendly and diplomatic with the dervishes, they probably will eventually come into conflict because their motives are at odds. Another loose thread is the freed Ephoriti. This module assumes that if the party does not free the Ephoriti, then some other hapless wanderer will have freed it. Dealing with the Ephoriti is the overarching plot of the Desert of Desolation Trilogy. 2 new monsters make their debut in this module. Dust diggers are giant starfish-like sand dwellers with a huge central maw that work like trappers. They bury themselves slightly under the sand and cover themselves with sand in order to stay hidden, and then they wait for prey. The Thunder Herders are a non-aggressive version of the purple worm. They are about 1.5 meters wide and about 2.5 meters long. A stampede of them can cause a great deal of confusion as they pass, such as small earthquakes and panicking pack animals. Roll credits. The module only gives credits to 3 people. It does not give credit to Jim Holloway or any other artists that have contributed to the module. Despite the many criticisms I have expressed about this module, I do love this module. The Hickmans have crammed a lot of lore and material into this module. Despite the module's booklet being only 32 pages, it seems more than twice its size. The lore takes up a lot of the pages of the booklet. Despite me skimming over the lore, this video is still turning out to be quite long, which is further proof of how much material is jammed in so few pages. The layout for the booklet is excellent. Boxed text is abundant and describes each of the rooms. Then, the Hickmans use paragraphs marked play, monster, character, treasure, trap/trick, and lore as necessary to describe the contents of the rooms. It is a far more structured style than seen in previous TSR modules. This greatly aids in the readability of the module. When combined with the next two modules of the Desert of Desolation Trilogy, I would rate this trilogy as very, very good. I second thought, take off one very for the Hickmans using the Desert Raiders as a MacGuffin. The i3 module received very good ratings on both Amazon's and Drive-Thru RPG's websites, averaging a 4.9 out of 5 stars between the both of them. There are a few customer comments. I will only read one notable one. One of the most respected AD&D adventures of all time. This one marks Tracy and Laura Hickman's entry to the TSR fold. Later, due to the dramatic plotting exhibited here, they would be asked to help create a series of novels and modules known as Dragonlance. The spirit of Amun-re swirls before you in these sands, beseeching you to plunder his tomb. Why? And how can anyone but the nomad survive in this savage desert where giant spiders burrow in the sands, the sun blasts the earth to crystal, and the Ephoriti reign supreme? Well, that's not my problem. I'll let your players handle that. An extremely challenging classic for levels 5 to 7. By the way, the Desert of Desolation Supermodule received top ratings on both Amazon's and Drive-Thru RPG's websites. Thank you for watching. Hope this video has been informative and entertaining. I have also created a playlist of classic D&D modules composed of videos from various YouTube channels. I have noticed some gaps in it. Hence, the reason for reviewing this module, which is to fill in one of those gaps. So, in the foreseeable future, to fill in some more of those gaps, I plan on reviewing those missing D&D modules. Till next time, this is RPGmodsFan saying cheers, have a good day, and goodbye.
I'm feeling so hollow. Don't you know? Don't you know? I'm living in shadow. Don't you know? Don't you know? I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? And you were fool's gold. Yes, I did. And I did it all for love. Yes, I did it all for love. Oh, they say fools believe believe in it, so I guess I'm one of them. Don't you know? I fell for fools gold. I fell for fools gold. What did I know? What did I know? I fell for fools gold. I fell for fools gold. What did I know? What did I know? You were fools gold. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I fell for fools gold. I fell for fools gold. What did I know? What did I know?